I will be honest with you. When I watched the replay from Las Vegas, my initial thought was not about who won the race. My initial thought was that Ross Chastain might be in serious trouble now because the Pennzoil 400 at Las Vegas Motor Speedway delivered two completely different headlines in the same afternoon. Denny Hamlin capturing a dominant victory, and then almost instantly a post-race pit road confrontation between former teammates Ross Chastain and Daniel Suarez that turned physical enough to shift the entire atmosphere of the weekend. And this confrontation did not come out of nowhere. There is a history that goes back years, tension simmering beneath the surface for multiple seasons. What happened on pit road at Las Vegas was the inevitable explosion of something building for a very long time. If you are a genuine NASCAR fan who wants the real story behind the headlines, smash that like button and subscribe. We are building a community of dedicated fans who actually care about what happens in the garage every single week. Let us begin with the race because Denny Hamlin's victory deserves recognition before we get into the chaos. Las Vegas was a grind, long green flag stretches, extremely limited opportunities to recover if you got buried in traffic. Only one caution for an on-track incident caused by Connor Zilisch spinning late. Once you lost track position, clawing it back was nearly impossible. And when a race becomes track position is everything, minor contact becomes a major issue, especially deeper in the pack where every driver is battling for points and pride. That is precisely where Chastain and Suarez were operating all afternoon. Denny Hamlin captured the Pennzoil 400 leading a race-high 134 laps. He did it the hard way. Overcame a pit road speeding penalty during the Stage 1 break, restarted deep in the field, then methodically carved his way back through the entire pack until he reclaimed control. He held off Chase Elliott and William Byron in the closing stretch. This was not a strategy victory. This was not a late caution gift. This was a genuine performance drive. This was Hamlin's 61st career Cup Series victory. That elevated him on the all-time winners list and broke his tie with Kevin Harvick. For a driver competing at this level for nearly 2 decades, milestones like that carry enormous weight. But what made his post-race comments resonate was the raw honesty. Hamlin revealed, "I knew it took a few weeks to feel like driving. Over the last couple weeks, I definitely regained my love of it." Regained my love of it. That phrase reveals where his mindset had been. When a driver of Hamlin's caliber admits he temporarily lost his passion, the struggles were real. This was his first triumph since losing the championship months earlier, and it arrived after a deeply personal family tragedy. The top 5 told the story of how competitive the field was. Hamlin first, Elliott second, Byron third, Bell fourth, Ty Gibbs fifth. Hamlin held off Elliott by just 502 seconds. There were 21 lead changes among 9 drivers. Only 20 of 36 starters finished on the lead lap. That final statistic is crucial. It shows how brutally the long green runs punished anyone who fell behind. If you were battling for 17th in the closing laps, that position represented points, pride, and the gap between a solid day and another frustrating week. That is exactly where Chastain and Suarez were fighting. Now let us get into what has the entire garage buzzing, the Chastain versus Suarez confrontation. Here is the background you must understand. Ross Chastain and Daniel Suarez are not just competitors, they are former teammates, and that changes everything. When you share a garage with someone for years, you share data, strategy, engineers, you know each other intimately. When that relationship fractures, the betrayal feels deeper than a normal dispute. There is personal trust involved. When it breaks, it does not heal easily. Suarez drove for Trackhouse Racing from 2021 through 2025. He was Chastain's teammate from 2022 through 2025. Then Suarez departed for Spire Motorsports for 2026, and Las Vegas was not their first confrontation. In 2023 at COTA, a post-race bump led to a heated situation. In 2025 at Sonoma, Chastain spun Suarez entering turn 11 and later apologized. That history matters. When you have had multiple incidents across multiple seasons, you do not enter the next encounter with a clean slate. You enter with accumulated resentment and shortened patience. Now here is what happened on track at the end. Reports described a close battle for 17th, with Chastain getting around Suarez in a tight fight and appearing to gesture out the window as he completed the pass. Emotions were already elevated before the checkered flag even fell. Then came the moment that changed everything. On the cool-down lap, when everything is supposed to be calming down, Chastain sideswiped Suarez. Suarez doored him back. They continued side by side toward pit road. Contact did not end when the race ended. And that is when NASCAR starts paying very close attention. Because on the cool-down lap, the question transforms from, are you still racing, to, are you deliberately sending a message? There is additional context about why Chastain's emotions were already heightened. 2 weeks earlier at COTA, the #1 Trackhouse team suffered a wheel detachment. 2 crew members were suspended for Phoenix and Las Vegas as a result. So Chastain arrived in Las Vegas with a reshuffled crew and accumulated pressure. Combine a long green flag race where track position is nearly impossible to recover. Late race battles for 17th, multi-year teammate tension, and accumulated team pressure. That fuse ignites rapidly. Now the pit road confrontation itself. This is where the situation escalated from tense to potentially career-altering. After the event, Suarez climbed out and walked over to Chastain to discuss the dispute. NASCAR stated the conversation lasted approximately 30 seconds. Then a shove from Chastain escalated everything. Even after they were physically separated by crew members and officials, the verbal exchange continued. Chastain was reportedly urging Suarez to move away. That is NASCAR's own description. Now what Suarez revealed afterward is what truly elevated this beyond a racing dispute. Suarez stated, "We got together a little bit in corner two." He was angry about it. Then he described his relationship with Chastain using language that became the headline. Suarez stated, "Our relationship has been always very weird, almost like a little bit of two-faced. That is not heat of the moment frustration. That is someone saying this has been accumulating for years. A calculated description of a broken relationship." Suarez also stated, "It is not my first rodeo. I have had to endure a lot to reach this point. As one of the few Mexican-born drivers competing at NASCAR highest level, that statement carries weight on multiple levels." Now Chastain's response, or lack of one. NASCAR reported he declined to comment. But he did not just politely decline. He shut it down abruptly. Chastain told reporters, "Not a chance, boys." Brief quote, powerful message. When a driver refuses to speak after a physical confrontation, it signals either they are avoiding a bigger penalty by not igniting the fire publicly, or they are furious enough that they do not trust themselves on a microphone. Either way, no resolution. The tension remains hanging in the air. Now the potential consequences. This is where it gets genuinely serious for Chastain. 3 layers triggered this confrontation. Turn 2 contact that made Chastain angry. The late race battle for 17th with the window gesture, and the post-checkered retaliation contact, plus the pit road shove. When contact continues after the race concludes, it stops being hard racing. It becomes a deliberate message. That is where Chastain's trouble becomes very real. NASCAR has established that post-race behavior is evaluated differently than in-race contact. Confrontations can result in meetings, warnings, or probation. If NASCAR determines it crosses into deliberate retaliation, fines or suspensions enter the conversation. There is precedent. In 2023, Daniel Suarez himself was fined $50,000 for post-race contact on pit road at COTA. So if officials view Las Vegas as intentional post-checkered retaliation, the discussion escalates rapidly. But NASCAR does not always penalize. After the Chastain and Gragson altercation at Kansas in 2023, NASCAR official Elton Sawyer explained the sport is emotional. Both sides were spoken to and no penalties issued. So NASCAR has 2 paths: enforce formally or treat it as heat of the moment. The complication for Chastain is that this does not exist in isolation. When repeated confrontations form a pattern, reputations shift. The benefit of the doubt vanishes with officials and with other drivers. The standings add pressure. Suarez 17th, Chastain 20th, both outside the playoff picture. This is not harmless drama. This is genuine tension in the every single point matters zone. And since Las Vegas, reports indicate the garage is genuinely divided. Some drivers understand Chastain's frustration. The racing was physical all afternoon. Others say the cool-down lap behavior crossed a line regardless of what happened during competition. Multiple crew chiefs reportedly discussed whether NASCAR needs clearer guidelines about acceptable cool-down lap behavior versus retaliation. The current rules leave room for interpretation, and that ambiguity frustrates both sides. There are also reports that Trackhouse Racing team owner Justin Marks has been in communication with NASCAR officials. The fact that team ownership is involved suggests this is more than a typical driver dispute. This confrontation is happening at a critical point in the 2026 season. Playoff positions are far from settled. Both drivers need every point they can accumulate. If this rivalry continues escalating, it costs both of them. History shows prolonged feuds rarely benefit either driver. Energy spent on anger and retaliation is energy not spent on improving the car and racing smart. But based on what Suarez revealed about their relationship, a quiet resolution seems unlikely. This feels like a rivalry that will define a significant portion of the 2026 season. The real questions moving forward: will we hear about warnings or probation quietly handed down? How will they race each other next time positions matter? Will Chastain address it publicly or let not a chance boys hang in the air another week? Because sometimes in NASCAR the penalty is not immediate. Sometimes the real consequence is how the garage treats you afterward. Reputation is currency in this sport, and right now Chastain's account balance is getting lower with every incident. Now I want to hear your perspective. Do you think Chastain was justified, or should he face penalties for the pit road behavior? Do you believe Suarez's two-faced characterization, or is that a frustrated driver venting? And can either of them afford this distraction while fighting for playoff position? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this deep, honest breakdown, like the video and subscribe to NASCAR Track News. We are building something real here, a community of fans who care about the full story. Thanks for tuning in. I will catch you at the next green flag.